Call the meeting into order for the June 15 Board of Zoning Appeals. Staff, will you call the roll?
Schwartfeger.
Here.
Strand. Here. Schaefer.
Here.
Seltzer. Here. Macklin. Here. Martin. Here. And Gertson.
Here. Welcome, everyone. You've got your packets. I hope you had a chance to review all the contents, and within them are the minutes from our May 18 Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. Chair will entertain a motion on those minutes.
So moved.
Second. Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of approval of the May 18 Board of Zoning Appeals minutes, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Minutes approved. Okay. To ensure the rights of all parties of interest and to provide an opportunity for each party to address the Board of Zoning Appeals in an orderly manner, the BZA will follow a fact-finding procedure which is outlined in the handout in each chair. Your attention to this procedure is appreciated. All decisions by the BZA are final. Decisions may be appealed to the district court within 30 days of the decision. If a decision is made tonight, that decision will be based upon the record of information presented to the BZA. Tonight we have a case of old business and a case of new business. The old business was continued from our May 18 meeting, so the chair will entertain a motion to bring that off the table.
Mr. Chairman, I move to remove that from the tables for further discussion.
Been moved. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor of removing case 2023.02 off the table? Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. I'll review the case with you. The case 2023-02, a request by Benjamin Mosier for a variance from Article 13, District Height Area Bulk Regulations, the Reno County Zoning Regulations. Article 13 requires a property zoned R3 to maintain a 30-foot front yard setback for all buildings. The applicant requests to construct a building 10 feet from the front yard setback. The property is located at 5638 Johnson Road. I'll now formally open the public hearing regarding that case. Have any BZA members had any outside contacts regarding this case?
No.
Do any BZA members have conflict of interest in this case?
No.
Okay, is the applicant here tonight? I do not see the applicant here. So I guess we need to decide if you've had a chance to, we got some additional information at the meeting on May 18, and that's where we decided as a group to continue this hearing, the public hearing, until today. I did not see any additional information. Staff, did you have any additional information for this case?
Mark Bonniatching, County Planner, and yeah, Mr. Chairman, I believe at the last meeting, the board requested some additional information from the applicant to look at maybe some possible alternative either locations or setback requirements regarding this case. And as of date, I've had no contact with the applicant as far as any kind of additional information. So my report really stands as written back in May. I would draw your attention to the comments. I had the health department review the additional photos that the applicant had submitted at the public hearing, and those comments are in your packet for review. And essentially what they say is that new driveway location that they indicated they were going to utilize still does not conflict with the septic system. And so the health department really essentially has no comment on this case. And so at this point in time, I would stand for questions. I would remind the board that all 5 factors do have to be found in favor of the applicant in order to grant a variance. Since the applicant is not here, I guess this board has several different options. You can certainly decide the case without hearing any additional testimony from the public and/or the applicant. If you want, I guess you could pause, take a break, and I could contact the applicant, or we can just proceed on as right now.
He was notified of this meeting, wasn't he?
The applicant was notified. I mailed them an agenda and my additional staff report here at the same time that you received your paper packet. So yes, they were notified by mail. I've had no contact since that hearing back in May, though.
Does the board have any further questions for the staff?
Is, Mark, I trust your recommendation is still for denial?
Yes, my recommendation still stands as a denial based on the fact that the applicant has not satisfied all 5 conditions in order to grant a variance. The only addition I had in my staff report that I sent you was that on the first page where I just notified that, hey, that there were some additional comments from the health department. Nothing else has changed in the staff report because there's no new information. So.
If we pause tonight for just a moment and take a short reset, you were recommending a pause and you try to contact, were you meaning tonight? Or was that, you mean in the coming weeks so we would table for the next month's meeting?
Both. I'm not recommending a pause.
Right, you were suggesting that as an option.
I'm providing that as an option if you wanted to take a pause on this, or you could move this agenda item down until we hear the other case, and then we could take a pause and I could contact them to see what the story is. Or you can table it again until next month and I can make contact, or you can decide this case tonight if you would like. So there's several different options available to the board.
I'm just clarifying what you were saying, so I knew you kind of had a roll.
I appreciate all the options that you've given us, but, where the individual has been notified, tonight's meeting and, hasn't expressed hadn't provided any input at all, doesn't show up. I'm not inclined to drag this thing out any further.
Mark, if we deny this request tonight, what options, if any, do the property owners have going forward?
Last month, the board granted the special exception for that building, and so their option really is to construct that building in compliance with the setback requirements that are currently in place with the regulation. And so that's really the only option other than reapplying for another variance attempt. But my suggestion to them would probably be not to do that, but it is certainly an option if they feel like they had information that they did not present to the board before. But, their option really is to obtain a permit and build the building in compliance with the regulations.
To do that, they would have to relocate it or change the size.
Change the size or relocate it, that's correct, yes.
And this is partially under construction, if I remember right.
It's partially in construction, yes, I do. I do have a slide. I haven't been out there in a long time, but it looks like that right now, if you kind of see it's not
He's got his posts set.
The posts are set and is beginning to be framed right now. So that would have to be removed. Everything.
I guess I'd say I'm disappointed that the applicant didn't come forth with additional information, because I thought their message was they were earnest, they wanted to expand their family setting there. And through that, they were educated on what setbacks were.
So, okay, that's all the comments I have.
Okay.
Okay.
Just in time. We've heard comments from staff concerning the case, so if you have anything to add, you can have your time. Don't mind, state your name and address for the record. You've got 10 minutes.
Alyssa Mosier, 5638 Johnson Drive, Hutchinson, Kansas. We want to thank you for giving us a second chance, allowing us more time to better evaluate our case. We feel that we need to give it our best shot at identifying our hardship to the board. And we hope that your evaluation is more than just an analysis of our hardship's merit, the quality of being particularly worthy or a good enough reason. We thank you for the opportunity to present this request regardless of the staff recommendation that our request be denied. The professional knowledge and experience of all of you combined gives us a view of your beliefs of a hardship as it relates to zoning law. Your duty, how we understand it, is to hear our testimony, deliberate, and make a finding on the case. Ben and I will suffer unnecessary hardship if our application for variance is not granted. We thank you for challenging us, though, to spend more time examining our hardship. We do not want to benefit from the board granting our variance simply because the request was compelling enough and no one objects. Although that would be in our favor, it tells us a lot about your character, and we admire that. Our family is growing, and if we cannot build this private garage, we are going to have to move. We would not pursue this if it was not something that we thought was worth our time, yours and ours. We believe it's extremely insensitive to say that the hardship that we face, if we are unable to be granted this variance, is in fact not a hardship. The definition of hardship is severe suffering or privation. Synonyms of hardship include hassle, deprivation, financial stress, adversity. Something that causes difficult or unpleasant situations in life is a hardship. We do not wish to carry our own understanding of hardship into this hearing. We do not wish to simply create a thick story, a sob story, that we just hope has enough merit and you are moved. One where the thicker we lay it, the better our chances of you approving our variance request will be. We are very serious about the hardships that we face if this variance is not approved. We have the land, but we cannot use it how we wish. We own this land, and we are willing to ask you respectfully for a variance. The strict application of the provisions of the zoning regulations will constitute unnecessary hardship upon Ben and I. We will have to sell our home and look for a new one that better fits our family and all our belongings. That is great enough hardship. If we didn't think it was, we would not have wasted our time or yours and our money with this hearing. We are worth this variance. Our property will be better with our garage on it. If we cannot build this garage where we want it, we will face hardships. Who deems a hardship to be valid ultimately? If we aren't granted this variance and the zoning laws are strictly applied, it will constitute unnecessary hardships. The hardships will be deemed valid or not by the board, who is vested with the ultimate authority. Our hardship has the potential essentially to be evaluated, reevaluated, and it really depends on how far our application for a variance is pursued by our opponents. I don't know why anyone would want to oppose us. If granting a variance is an option and we come to the board, who has the ultimate authority, and the board is made up of competent individuals and have the ability, the knowledge, the skill to decide whether or not our hardships are legitimate hardships, we believe we have met the 5 factors. The unusual irregularity in our property makes it uniquely difficult to comply fully with the zoning regulations. We ask you to approve our variance request today, and we can affirm the reasons why. The conditions are born out of the quality and conditions that are inherent in the physicality of our parcel. the topography of our parcel, the arrangement of natural and artificial physical features of our area do not allow us to build anywhere else. The day after our last hearing, we got a lot of rain, and I said, thank you, Lord, because I got new pictures and I want to show you the flooding that is significant on our property where we cannot build it on the only other spot that was a possibility. The lot shape is something that was imposed only by conditions that were outside of our control. The direction of our home is facing in a condition that is also outside of our control. We did not choose which way our home was facing or where on our land it's placed. Mark Von Action said in our first phone call ever, really, it is the best place for it. This made us feel that he was on our side. He did say that his job was to be totally impartial, unbiased. However, we didn't think that we would face any opposition. The parcel is unusual and different from any other parcel in the same zoning district. Hear me out. The parcel is unique, not generally present in the overall district. We explained various reasons that were out of our control. Soil quality, location of trees, location of our septic system, the slope of our land, the flooding that occurs, new pictures that I brought, where the shade is located, where our back door is, where the streets are, where the sun rises and sets. All of these are out of our control. However, soil quality on its own, it's not unique to our parcel, and I agree. The location of our trees on its own is not unique to our parcel, and I agree. The location of the septic system on its own, and so on. To make a point, there is no such thing as a condition which is unique to any property which is not ordinarily found in the same zone or district in any county. There are no valid conditions on their own that are unique to any property in Reno County. Ponds, ravines, hills, the shape of a lot, nothing is unique really. It's all of these factors together that make our property unique. We've examined the property lines, we have looked at the pipeline, we have considered everything. We cannot build this garage anywhere else because in terms of land use, we would still never use the north side of our parcel. We would still spend most of the time on the south side of our home. We do not wish to talk about alternative locations for this building. We do not wish to discuss a different setback distance. We have decided that we will be selling our home and moving before our baby arrives in November. This is an unnecessary hardship for us, and we ask that you please grant this variance in our favor. After taking everything into consideration, we ask that you grant us a variance to be able to apply for a building permit for a 40 by 50 building on the north side of our parcel. We ask that you focus on determining whether we can build a garage 10 feet from the West 59th Avenue front yard property line. Please allow us to build it 10 feet from the property line instead of the 30-foot requirement. We feel confident that our hardships are in the realm of the real. Thank you.
Any questions for the applicant? Staff, do you choose to rebut any statements?
No. No rebuttal.
Okay. Give the board a moment just to.
Anybody in the audience, since this is still a public hearing,
That's right. Is there anybody in the audience for this case?
would speak?
There is none. For the record. See a lot of reviewing going on, so I'm going to give it a moment or two.
I had to review it and I live there.
I'll ask, is there any further questions for the applicant? Any further questions for staff?
I think I asked the question, but was before the applicant arrived, and so I want to ask it again for the applicant hearing. Because, Mark, is your position still for recommending denial?
Yes.
Any other further questions? The public hearing is now closed. Acceptance or denial of a special exception must be based on the public.
Variance.
It's a variance, sorry. Gotcha. The denial of the variance must be based on the public hearing record of information and its opinion. As a matter of fact, such variance will not adversely affect the uses of adjacent and neighboring properties. This is a time for BZA to discuss the case and ask procedural questions only of staff. Is there any discussion of this case? Chair will entertain a motion.
I guess I've got a question. This 15-foot on the long road frontage and 30 on the short, is that correct?
Yes. That's in Article 14, I believe, of the zoning regulations. And it helps to address corner lots.
Yeah.
Because people that have a corner lot, such as in this case, oftentimes get, for lack of a better term, punished because they have two front yards.
Yeah.
And so to help kind of ease that, the regulations allow a 15-foot setback on the other street yard.
So in this case, we're asking for 10 feet then, so even, regardless of what side would be considered the front side.
Yeah, it doesn't have anything to do with what's how the house faces.
Right,
It has to
right.
do with the lot dimensions.
Right,
what
but
constitutes
I guess what I'm
that.
asking is this request is closer to the line than,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it wouldn't meet setback requirements regardless of which side.
Regardless, right.
Any other discussion?
I guess as I'm reading the Reno County Health Department, and Darcy makes it pretty plain that you just can't drive over those laterals without, do we have any additional information relative to
Larry
that?
relocated the driveway.
Yep,
In the last meeting,
Yep.
yeah, so that it doesn't cross the laterals.
And but we don't have a drawing of that relocation.
Yeah, we did.
Well, I don't know.
I did not give you the pictures that she submitted last month, but if you recall, they showed how their driveway is going to be a little bit closer to the building, so they were going to be avoiding the laterals.
Harley,
Yeah.
here, that's their corrected version.
So I showed the health department the pictures that were submitted last month, and then she provided additional comments that essentially say that they have no concern with that, that they're not driving over the laterals anymore with their driveway location.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I think I have a question, but I'm just going to talk out loud a little bit. If the building were reduced by 5 feet so that it would comply with the 15-foot setback, is the corner lot requirement, can there be a variance on which side that applies to?
I think you stated that the longer side has the 15-foot setback.
Johnson Road has the 15-foot setback, 59th has the 30-foot. Unfortunately, so reducing the building by a mere even 5 feet still doesn't comply with that setback requirement based off the dimensions of the lot. So,
But is that a variance that can be applied for to change the long side and the short side? Okay.
no, you'd have to change regulations or, do something different with the setback requirements. You can vary from yard requirements. So in Article 13, we list the yard requirements, which are setbacks, which are minimum width or depth of a parcel, but trying to vary from something like that, that's not permitted in the variance request. It's a regulatory procedure in the zoning regulations, so no.
You have a question?
I just guess I don't quite understand why 15 feet on the long side and 30, I guess, on the short side. I guess I don't see the reason for that.
Well, it's something that this board can, or the planning commission actually could look at, in the future, but that's what the regulation is right now. Like I say, the intent was to give some relief to corner properties. I can tell you, that's what the intent. Why 15 foot? Probably just because it's 1/2 of what's required on the short side of a corner lot. It's not used very often. I have done it, I'll tell you, in issuing permits. That hasn't come before this board. I have used that requirement in Article 14 to help people comply with setback requirements, but I can tell you it hasn't been more than 10. Probably more along the lines of maybe 5 times I've actually had to use that regulation to allow a person to build a building that would comply with our setback requirements. So that article is not used very often right now with our regulations.
Okay, I guess my question would be the 15 and the 30, I understand that's in the regulations. We can't do anything with that at this point other than change the regulations at some point down the road. And that, I'm assuming that those numbers, why one was one way and one the other way, it was basically an arbitrary decision, in essence. More logically would be to word it such that unless there was a compelling reason why not, that they could use the 15-foot on either side, as long as the other side complied with the 30. But, that's not where we're at now, but that is an issue we could deal with down the road and try to rectify this to, but even if we did that, you still got to shave 5 feet off the building.
At least.
So, we could look at, if we did that, saying, okay, shave 5 feet off the building and then, try to change that regulation down the road, is a option.
Can we alter the amount of the variance request? Or is it a strictly up or down kind of question?
you can't go closer than,
Right, but like say hypothetically allow 15
Allow
foot.
15-foot
you could hypothetically allow
Yeah.
15 foot, provided that you could answer all 5 questions, and all 5 questions can be found in the applicant's favor.
Okay.
You can't go down, because what was noticed was 10 foot, so you can't grant
Right.
5 feet, for example, and that's not what they're requesting, but you
So
can't
we
go up.
could back it off to 15, but we still have to meet the 5 factors.
Still have to meet the 5 factors, correct?
So I think in the original review you did, you had two of the 5 factors. That doesn't.
I think staff had 3 of the 5.
Yeah, one.
Yeah, one.
I'm saying 2 that were negative.
Oh, I thought they were 3. I thought, factor number 5.
I believe there's 2.
There's 2?
Yeah, I think one.
Well, on number 5, staff concludes the proposed accessory building does appear to be contrary to the spirit of the regulation.
Yeah.
Factors 2 and 4. The granting of the variance will not affect the rights of adjacent property owners or residents. That was found in the applicant's favor. And the variance desire will not adversely affect the public health, safety, order, convenience, prosperity, or general welfare.
Yeah.
Those were the 2.
So 2 in favor.
2 and 4, the other 3 were found against.
Wait, we had 3 in our favor. Special exception, so it's this one. We met 3 of the 5 factors. Number 1, staff concludes the utility easement's corner lot location of the 100-foot gas line easement does not constitute any condition which is unique to the property. That one we did not meet. Staff concludes the proposed building location does not appear to adversely affect the rights of adjacent property owners. That one was in our favor. Staff concludes the strict application will not constitute an unnecessary hardship. That was not in our favor. After visiting the property and viewing the proposed location, staff concludes the proposed development would not be contrary to the public health, safety, order, convenience, prosperity, or general welfare. In our favor. Staff concludes accessory building does not appear to be contrary to the general spirit and intent of these regulations. 3 in our favor.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay.
question for Mark. As I understand it, this came to your attention because one of the residents out there raised the question about they saw a building under construction. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And have you heard anything else from that particular resident out there? Good, bad, or indifferent?
No, they have not contacted me. One person did ask me what the result was last month, and I told him that this public hearing was tabled till tonight, and they were welcome to submit additional comments or come to the public hearing tonight, and they didn't either. I've had no other contact from residents out there, other than that one.
Any other discussion from the board?
You know, when I'm going through the 5 factors and I stop on number 1, you know, there are a lot of properties in Reno County. I mean, if you look at a pipeline map that the federal government puts out, you know, there's thousands of properties that have pipeline easements in Reno County. I don't know that I can realistically consider that unique to this property, honestly. And then, you know, if it's a requirement that we have to find in favor of all 5 factors, I'm struggling to do that, honestly.
Any other discussion? Chair will entertain a motion.
Well, I'm in the same boat as Alan. I can't find a way around the 5 factors, and that seems to be our task. And I've spent quite a bit of time thinking about this, and I have not been able to satisfy that requirement. So I will move the case number 2023-02. Request by Benjamin Mosier requesting a variance from Article 13 of the zoning regulations to permit construction of an accessory building 10 feet from a front yard setback in the R3 Single Family Residential District at 5638 Johnson Drive be denied based upon the owner not satisfying all 5 factors for the reasons stated in the staff report and as heard at this public hearing.
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, staff, can you call the roll?
Schwertfeger,
No.
Strand,
Yes.
Schaefer,
Oh, yes.
Yes.
In a word, yeah.
Schaefer, yes. Seltzer,
Yes.
Macklin,
Yes, and I might qualify that as it's too bad that the applicant didn't become aware of the guidelines before they started construction.
Martin,
Yes.
and Gertson.
Yes. case 2023-02 is denied. Okay, moving on to new business. All the admonition that we had at the beginning of the Board of Zoning Appeals still stands. I'll now formally open the public hearing regarding the case number 2023-05, a request by Jordan and Heather Cross for a special exception from the Reno County zoning regulations to construct a 40-foot by 100-foot residential accessory building and permit a total of 7,480 square feet of accessory buildings. Total square footage of all accessory buildings exceeds the 5,000 square foot maximum permitted on a parcel greater than 2.0 acres. The property is zoned R1 Rural Residential District and located at 7519 North Mayfield Road. Have any BZA members had any outside contacts regarding this case? Do any of the BZA members have a conflict of interest with this case?
No.
Will applicant please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record? You have 10 minutes to present your case. Additional time may be allotted to the applicant at the discretion of the chairman. BZA members may request clarification at the end of your presentation or may have questions.
Jordan Cross, address 7519 North Mayfield Road, Beaver, Kansas. We just moved here from Nebraska here end of December and bought a place there. And basically I want to put up the building that's been discussed there. I drive truck and I park my truck at home. And so just like put a building up that I can store that in there out of the weather. And then we also do, my kids are into horses, and so we'd like to do like, storing some hay in there for them, things like that. And then just general storage, like I have a fifth wheel camper, pickup, stuff like that, I'd like to store in there. So I guess pretty basic, so that's
Kind of a truck you drive if you need a 100-foot building.
well, I put that up, or I want to put that up just because then I can back in with a truck and trailer hooked up. Okay, and still have room to get around the end and whatnot.
You're running a tractor trailer unit. And that's strictly you just park it there at nights. It's not ancillary to a business or anything.
No, I live there, so my truck at home is only. Yeah.
Are you an owner operator or do you
I'm
drive?
an owner operator, yeah. I haul for metal wholesale here out of South Hutch here. So,
The concern would be is that, the single truck with you just parking it there wouldn't be much of a concern. I guess the question stands if you have any desires to expand your business. And if it becomes a business, then it becomes a different conversation with the planning and zoning.
So this would be a residential building, basically is what this is. It's not permitted commercial use. So if you were to start, say, add another truck and start running 2 trucks, then we might have an issue with this. And then you'd have to be back before us with a conditional use permit.
I see, okay. I have 2 trucks, but one's my spare right now. So I don't, and my business is actually based out of Nebraska yet, since we just moved. But I keep an office up there, and that's where my other truck is parked right now. But
You anticipate moving that down here or something in the
I
future?
haven't totally decided on that yet. If I'll actually move it's basically just a paperwork thing, for an owner operator. But at this point, I'm gonna leave it up there for now, but, so.
And the second truck is just a tractor, or is it tractor and trailer?
It's just a tractor. I have my own trailer, but probably gonna be selling that probably because I pull their trailer at metal wholesale, so. I guess, I wouldn't, say it. I mean, parking my truck at home right now, I mean, I'm not, by putting a building up, I'm not gonna be doing anything more with that building than what I would be doing parking my truck there at home. It's basically, I can get in and out of the weather, especially in the wintertime when it's cold. You know, some places will start a little easier and cleans my place up. I mean, you get stuff sitting outside, I'd rather see it sitting in a building rather than.
I understand. How tall of a building do you anticipate putting up?
16-foot sidewalls.
Okay. To the peak?
To the peak would be about 25 feet, a little under probably.
That area has been prone to flooding.
That's what they told us when we moved in. The area where I want to put the building is not in the floodplain. The southwest side of my property would be in the floodplain, but this is clear on the north side.
I live over on 43rd and prior to me being on this board, was on a township board for Medora Township, which controls that area.
I see.
In 19, we did see, well, this is just anecdotal. We did see water where you plan to put your building. So you might just be, it's not our decision at all.
Sure.
Just anecdotal.
And the information to have.
I don't want you to have to wear mucks to go out there. But anyhow, nonetheless, you're right, it is out of the floodplain based on what, we'll hear from the staff here in a little bit, but yeah. Any other questions for the applicant?
I have one.
Okay.
Nobody else does. Just to clarify, Mr. Cron, you said the south part floods, but the building's going on the north side of the property is just the opposite, is it not?
I'm sorry, it's the north
side is the floodplain. The building is going in the southeast, like we have on the map.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was.
All right, just want to make sure, just want to make sure we're okay. You may not be limited to just that area, but I just want to make sure that's what
No, I haven't changed plans on where I want to go.
the north side is. So,
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Is the building, are you planning on enclosing it with the garage door?
Okay. Thank you. Yep, we might need some clarification later, but you're done for now. Staff, would you like to give your report?
As you heard, this is a special exception request. The reason we are here is because there's two additional buildings out on this property. There is a 50 by 60 accessory building and a 20 by 24 accessory building. So this 40 by 100 puts him over the 5,000 square foot limit for accessory buildings that he is allowed to install on that property without going through the special exception. Previous conversations, we had, putting up a portion of the building now and then maybe coming back later time here. Mr. Cross has decided to go ahead and just apply for the special exception to try and do the whole building at this time. You're at 7519 North Mayfield Road. For those of you that maybe aren't familiar with there, you're up in the northeast part of the county near the city of Buhler. What you see in purple on the map is Hidden Valley subdivision. That is actually a platted subdivision. The property in question is actually outside of that subdivision area, but it is a well-developed subdivision. There's very few lots that do not have any kind of houses there. If you look across the street under property owner Blues 4, that's zoned agricultural, there is no single-family dwelling there. There is no single-family dwelling right to the south of his property. Of course, to the west, there is a house there. To the north, that's mainly a recreational area. There is, I believe, like a hunting cabin, something that's used up there, so there is a dwelling up in that area. But based off of where he says he's going to be locating that building, no house to the south, no house to the east. As you read my report, the building can only be used for residential purposes. You heard testimony here, he's gonna be parking his semi-truck here. That's one of the reasons we have these types of hearings, to kind of put on record, what are we gonna be using that building for? So if you're gonna be using it just for your own personal semi-truck, even though it's related to a business, that's probably gonna be okay with our zoning regulations. As you, as a board, alluded to, if you start getting into multiple semis or employees getting out of property, now you're probably gonna be rising to the level of possibly needing a conditional use permit here. Based off the testimony that I've heard right now, I don't believe he rises to that level at this time. If he decides to expand with, like I say, additional employees or additional, vehicles, then it may have to constitute a need to come back before this board to do what we call like a contractor storage yard type of conditional use permit. Setbacks for the R1 zoning district, 30 feet off the right-of-way, you're like 10 foot off of a side property line and 20 foot off of the back. You did hear testimony here as I had questions on the height of the building. It appears that he's going to be under a 35-foot height limitation in that R1 zoning district, so that's going to be in compliance with our regulations. If this board determines then that the building will be used for residential purposes, then staff recommends approval of this request. I've attached 3 conditions of approval. First one is approval to not exceed a 4,000 square foot accessory building. It can only be used for non-commercial, non-industrial purposes without an approved conditional use permit. And that the building cannot be used as a single-family dwelling except in compliance with our zoning regulations here. In my staff report, I alluded to that subdivision there. There are many accessory buildings, as you might imagine, in that subdivision. None of them rise to that level. However, he does not access his property through the subdivision streets. He's actually outside of that subdivision. So the board would have to determine whether that size of a building is really appropriate out on about an 8.8 acre parcel is what he owns right now. Questions at this point for me? I do have a few pictures of the area in case you're not familiar with it. Very hard to see, but this is his site plan. You do have a copy of that in your packet. He's proposing to locate that building kind of in the southeast corner of his parcel. You see as the driveway goes up, you'll see that there's the big 40 by 50 building that's existing right now. On the north side of his building is the smaller accessory building that he has on the property. This is an image from Google Earth dating back to 2019. His property has got the gray roof that you see right there. Down the left-hand corner is the subdivision road. So as you can see, what I'm trying to point out here is to the south there's no dwelling, and then to the east there's no dwelling either. So there really should not be any kind of visual impact from any kind of neighbors in those two areas. Get a little bit closer, you can kind of see that area right there. And unfortunately, there wasn't a ground view with Google Earth in this area of the county, and I did not, unfortunately, have time to get out to take an actual picture on the ground here. But I feel these pictures should suffice for your evaluation. And with that, if you got questions for me, I'd be happy to answer.
Well, do you know what type of construction he plans to use? Is it going to be just a pole-type building, or is it going to have a concrete floor in it?
We did not get into that, mainly because our zoning regulations don't really address what type of construction or whether it's going to be a concrete or dirt floor, so I did not ask those questions. But he can certainly respond to that in rebuttal if you're curious about that.
Well, it's really a curiosity, mainly because of the recent case that we recently heard.
Right.
That's what created the curiosity.
Sure.
Curiosity killed a cat, though, Harvey.
I have a question for my own benefit, maybe for that of Mr. Cross as well going forward. Where is the tipping point from residential to business? I mean, I know you mentioned employees, and that would seem to clearly be in the business zone. But what if he just says, well, I got a good deal on another truck, and so now I've got 2 trucks, and, well, I've got 2 trucks, maybe I should have 2 trailers, and where are you going to get excited about?
The tipping point is really within our home occupation regulations, when you start bringing multiple trucks in, when you start bringing multiple employees to your house to get into their truck and then take that off to go and make their delivery. That's where you really start getting into the need for conditional use permit, the need to review, parking. Is this really appropriate for this area? A gentleman with 1 truck that he drives, many parcels have semi-trucks out there, whether it be for agricultural or other means. We don't have regulations that really prohibit semi-trucks on parcels. But what we do have is, when the semi-trucks that are on that property start being used for a non-agricultural type purpose. If you got 1 person, not a big deal. Many people drive truck and then drive that truck home and park it on their 8, 10, 5-acre parcel of ground. But when you start bringing in employees to the area, that starts changing the character of the neighborhood potentially. So that's where you need to start getting into a conditional use permit.
So even without a building, that could still come into question?
Yeah, it could. Yeah. Yep. And I might add, Mr. Strand, that we would want to probably also, a future amendment, look at our home occupation regulations and further define those and get more clarity with this instead of trying to leave it up to the zoning administrator's interpretation. So, many home occupations, you'll see you're allowed to have 1 employee outside of the family home that can come and be a part of a home occupation. We need to probably look at those types of regulations to further define that so there is a black and white situation so everybody knows what to expect.
While we're talking about other things, I guess I wonder on this building, the 5,000 square foot building requirement, when this regulation was written, was there any thought about scaling that to some degree in terms of, I think the 5,000 starts at 2 acres and it applies all the way to 40 acres. So it just seems like it might be more efficient if there was some scaling of, 5,000 square feet of building space on a 39-acre tract doesn't seem to be comparable to 5,000 square feet on a 2.1 acre tract.
That's why we had these hearings. We amended that back in 2021 because remember it was 2,000 square feet for any parcel that was under 40 acres. And so the Planning Commission looked at that and amended that regulations a couple of years ago, and we, as the board, set the threshold at 2 acres, and then we also set a threshold of 5 acres. As I recall, there was not really much discussion on a graduated scale, if you will. I think the situation was that we wanted to try and give citizens some relief that have, say, 10 acres, for example, and they want to build a common 40 by 60 building. That was an automatic special exception. And so I think the board looked at doing an amendment to that and succeeded, and that was passed. And so it's, amendments and regulations are meant to be changed over time as it need warrants. And so that's certainly something we can look at in the future with the Planning Commission, is to make it a graduated scale, for example.
Thank you.
Kind of the history behind it. The regulations were 2,000 square feet, if I remember correctly.
Right.
And we were approving, just basically, the applicant would come in, we'd hear their testimony, boom, vote, gone. They were done with a 40 by 60 building. Well, it was 2,400 square feet. That's where the 5,000 came in. And the acreage piece of it, I believe if it's 1.9 and below, we're still at that 2,000 square feet.
2 or below.
Yeah,
2.0 or below.
2.0 below. If it's 2.01 and above, then we go to larger. There was a lot of discussion around that, and that did two things. It eased Mark's job in being able to approve it on the spot and not having to go through all the motions. Just kind of a little history.
And not having to slow things down 2 or 3 months.
Right. Yep.
We were processing probably 15 of those cases in a year at least, and there was really no discussion by the BZA, and there really wasn't much issue with any of the buildings, and so I think that was a good amendment that we made, and that's the purpose of being able to do that, is if you see something, if everything's just going to be approved, then let's make a change so we don't have to go through this big process, because it's a lot of work on me. It's a delay in the owner of the property not being able to get his building put up because we have to go through this process. So.
Good. Any other questions for staff? Thank you, Mark. If there's anyone in the audience who would like to comment on this case, you may have 5 minutes to comment. Please come forward to the podium one at a time and state your name and address for the record before commenting. Audience members are only permitted to address the BZA from the podium. Audience members are permitted only one time at the podium. In the interest of time, if you agree with the comments previously made by audience members, please don't repeat the comments, simply state you agree and present new information if so desired. Statements and questions should only be directed to the BZA, not the applicant or staff. The BZA may choose not to answer questions or engage with the public. Questions regarding the application can be asked to the BZA and then answered by the applicant or staff during the rebuttal phase of the hearing. Is there anyone here that would like to speak towards this?
I have to get up? Oh, no.
Yeah.
I might pass out.
We don't bite and we don't throw anything, so you're safe.
I'm Wendy Burrows. We're Jordan's neighbor. We own the 4 properties going straight south. And we just are here to support him, so we don't have any issues. I mean, we can hardly see what's at his house now. So with that building there, the trees and that, it's not gonna bother us any. So, and there are quite a few. The place directly to the west of him, I know the owners that live there, they've passed on now, but he had many semi-trucks in there and employees and that, and, you know, Showalters. Yeah, and then on the top R1, if that's the house, there's a house on the other side of the AG up top there.
Yes.
I know that was Mike Kern's construction, and he had all his employees and everything in there. And he's still got 2 semis in there, even though he sold the place, so, you know.
All right.
I mean, that's all.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let me know.
Any other comments? You're not going to get up? Okay.
It's my husband.
Good spokesperson, right?
Yeah.
I gotcha.
I should have brought my wife.
Does the applicant wish to rebut any statements made? Okay, thank you. Staff, do you have any additional comments?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Does the BZA have any further questions for the applicant or staff?
I just have one, as far as utilities to the building, is it just electricity?
Yeah, I'll definitely put electricity in, and then probably a water, pipe water into it too.
Okay. No plans for a bathroom or anything like that in there?
At this point, no.
Curious, it's in septic systems and, that's a whole other can of worms, so.
Any other questions for the applicant or staff? Public hearing is now closed. Acceptance or denial of this variance shall be, or special, excuse me, this is a special exception. Good. It must be based on a public hearing record of information and its opinion. As a matter of fact, such special exception shall not adversely affect the uses of adjacent and neighboring properties. This is the time for the BZA to discuss the case and ask procedural questions of staff only. Do we have any other discussion? Chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that case number 2023-05, the request by Jordan Cross requesting a special exception from the Reno County zoning regulations to permit a total square footage of all accessory buildings on the parcel to exceed the 5,000 square foot limit in the R1 Rural Residential District at 7519 North Mayfield Road be approved, allowing a building 40 by 100 foot in size for a total of 7,480 square feet. Total accessory building square footage as requested in the application, subject to conditions listed above, based on the reasons stated in the staff report and as heard at this public hearing.
I second that motion.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, staff call the roll.
Shortfire. Strand.
Yes.
Schaefer.
Yes.
Felton.
Yes.
Macklin.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
And Gertson.
Yes. Okay, congratulations.
We're not such bad people.
Welcome to Kansas.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Your spot. Okay, is there any other business to be brought before the Board of Zoning Appeals? Seeing none, Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn the Board of Zoning Appeals.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor of adjourning the Board of Zoning Appeals, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. BZA is adjourned. Okay, anybody need a break? You gonna buy me a pad?
Hey, wake me up when you do that.
Okay, now. All right. I'll call the Planning Commission meeting portion to order. June 15 Planning Commission, staff, will you call the roll?
Shortfire.
Here.
Strand. Here. Schaefer.
Here.
Seltzer. Here. Macklin. Here. Martin. Here. Gertson.
Here. Okay. Hope you've had a chance to review the pack of the minutes from our June 15 meeting. Chair will entertain a motion there.
So moved.
Been moved to approve the minutes from the May 18 Planning Commission. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Those in favor of approving the May 18 minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes approved. Mark, thank you for not having a case, so I don't have to read.
My pleasure. My pleasure, Mr. Chairman.
Tongue tied.
Oh, jeepers. That's all right. Just the only piece of business we have is the text amendments that we need to go through.
Yes, so we briefly discussed last month the changes that you and staff made in April. I believe the board accepted all those changes, and so you essentially have the same copy of the regulations that you saw in May minus the red highlights. Staff has not made any additional changes to the regulations right now, and so I think staff is really at the point where we're looking for feedback from the board on what additional changes that you would like to make or other discussion points that we would like to have on there.
That's my cue.
Is that your cue?
That's my cue.
Okay.
I have some thoughts. I'll pass them out. That damn Harley to Don. Mark already has a copy.
Mark, that meeting that I sent you the email about,
Yes,
where's that at? I can't remember.
I think it's Stringer.
And it's Stringer
Okay.
Stringer.
right now. And,
6 or 6:30.
yeah. Oh, it's not 6.
Better not. Yeah, you did. I counted right. All right. I was going through our proposed regulations and looking at some regulations from other entities and just grabbed some things out of some of those and thought maybe we would want to consider looking at possibly incorporating those in our regulations. What I've done is just put these on there and noted the approximate section that they go in. I can tell I'm already screwed up. That first one should be 25.
I was just gonna ask that.
22, yeah. I'm not a great typist,
Hey.
you know. You should have seen the spell check on this thing. But what I'm doing on this one, where it says approval process, and this is under the contents of the development plan, plan of operations, and this is, you know, not necessarily saying where it should go, but it actually sets out for any applicants what the approval process is, what goes on, you know, filing a conditional use permit, step one, holding a public hearing, negotiating and accepting the development plan agreements and contents and whatnot of that. Then in going down into section E, and where some of these I've added, let me see. Get back. Six.
Can I say one thing?
Yes,
before
you
go any
may.
further?
Yes.
The one change on everything to what you have for the director of planning, that needs to go to the planner, not the director of planning.
Okay,
I'm the
I'm
director.
trying to figure out, I couldn't figure out what to call Mark. You know, I call him a lot of things, but, you know, I thought it'd be nice and give him an official.
I appreciate the promotion.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll be visiting you for a raise tomorrow.
Well, he's got my job right here.
We'll just call him the Reno County Planner. How's that? Okay. Basically, in addition to the section requirements, I did again, 106B. What am I doing here? Okay, it's gotta be in 25, okay. Oh, yeah, no, all right. Okay. I don't remember what I was doing when I did this. It's possible that 25-106 should be 25-105. Just shoehorning that thing in there somewhere. And then going down where D, okay, under the approval process, I say A, B, C, and D, contents of the development plan, that is currently 25-106. Just a minute, I thought I made some notation somewhere, but anyway, guess not. Okay, yeah, 25, first I was gonna do is change the numbering on 25-105 and call it A and B. And instead I left 25-105 as is and then inserted 25-106. And then made the current 25-106 basically as a sub-item under the new 25-106, if you will.
Okay.
Is that making any sense to you?
Yeah, I think so.
So in other words, 25-105 is no change on that. 25-106 okay, what I'm doing is putting this in, starting out as the approval process, saying A, B, C, D, and then E is getting into the development plan, which is currently what is shown in 25106. So that would fall into there. And then, there are some additional items that I felt maybe should be considered in the development plan. That are, not currently listed on here.
Okay.
Okay, you following me a little bit now?
So maybe you just want to create like a 25-1006 and then have like an additional number there, like, instead of having
25.
1 through 3, have 1 through 4 and insert the approval process.
Right.
Somewhere, and then under the development plan,
Okay, yeah.
we start listing all of these
Actually,
specific
what I'm
items.
saying is 25106 would start out with the approval process.
Right, right.
And then you get down to contents of the development plan under my item D, and that's where you start incorporating the current, what you currently have is 25106.
So that's supposed to be 25-106. It's not going into Article 22 miscellaneous.
Yeah, don't forget, that's wrong. That should be a
Okay.
25.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm on board.
My typing skills aren't too good.
Because I thought, putting an approval process in for like
Yeah.
a general, that might not be a terrible idea.
Well, that's kind of what I thought, just state, okay, here's the process you go through to get, approval of a conditional use permit for a solar system.
And you just felt like putting it in there helps explain it, because I say it's the same process as doing any kind of conditional use
Yeah, it's just,
permit.
it makes the applicant, I think, it gives it more cut and dried, saying, here's the steps you've gotta do.
Because, that's kind of contained in there, so it's.
Kind of, but it's not
Yeah.
ABC, is like what I'm saying.
Right, it's not
Let's do it
black
that
and
way.
white.
Yeah, let's just do it. Okay, here's step 1, step 2, step 3, and then you get down to the development plan, and I'm throwing in some other stuff maybe that should be considered in that I didn't see listed on the current information on that. So that takes us down to 25107, and that's dog plan studies and other permits. On 25107-6, that's where we discuss glare. I'm saying that, okay, inserting at the beginning of that section, we'd start out with a statement saying a commercial solar energy system at no time shall create glare on any non-participating property line, structure, or right-of-way, period. And then we go into, the rest of what we currently have in there regarding the glare thing.
Glare seems pretty ambiguous there. I mean, somebody with sensitive eyes could think, wow.
Yeah, they could.
I don't know,
I didn't find a definition for glare anywhere.
Where the solar panels are built and to collect the sunlight. Now, I get it.
Yeah.
There's gonna be some panels that are gonna have some reflectivity in it. But if they're putting them up on rooftops around airports, there can't be that.
No, they have
There's not a whole-
ways.
There's a certain amount of glare, I get it, but I don't know.
They have ways, I think, of
was there some kind
reducing.
of standard?
Pardon?
Is there any kind of standard?
Not that I know
We
of.
say in the draft, a solar glare hazard analysis, so.
I was gonna say, didn't we have a report requirement somewhere in here?
Yeah, there it is.
Yes.
And also, the ask is in there for the mitigation if there is some.
So anyway, that's what I'm throwing out, as far as trying to do something on glare. so that, first of all, it doesn't affect or impact any non-participating properties. Structures are right-of-ways. Next item would be under the same section, but I'm just throwing in additional items, and I just started, I think we ended at 12, and I picked up and went from there. 13 is noise, generating equipment setback, putting in some verbiage there that the equipment that could create objectionable sounds during normal operations shall be located as far as practically possible away from any non-participating existing dwellings. Yeah, whatever. And I said, I think a sound level of 50 decibels measured at the outer wall of the existing dwelling located from located on an adjacent non-participating property or less than 150 feet from any non-participating property line that does not include a dwelling. And that requirement can be waived, based on landowner consent. Then I went down to 14, employee parking. The employees and equipment trucks shall not park along some county roads. Parking should be as far away as possible from non-participating dwellings. So that would be during, construction, maintenance, decommissioning and whatnot. You're trying to prevent the solar system from having, a bunch of trucks parked on our roadways. Dust control, that the developer would be responsible for wetting out to lessen the amount of dust created during construction, or applying calcium chloride or similar dust control products to any gravel county roads that be used during construction. Item 16, interference with reception, that the solar system should be constructed and operated so it does not interfere with television, internet, telecommunications, microwave, GPS, military defense radar, navigational, radio reception to neighboring areas. Then go down to section 25-108. Find that one. Okay, and that's just additional requirements be included in submittals. Just another, this one I wasn't sure where to stick it in, so I just added it in there, saying any damage to waterways, public regulated drains, ditches, private or mutual drains, county tiles, or other items to regulate drainage caused by the construction, installation, maintenance, or decommissioning and restoration of the solar entity must be completely repaired by this owner to the near original condition so as not to impede the natural flow of water. All repairs shall be compliant and approved by the Director of County Public Works. And then a similar statement there, the damage onto roads, any damage to streets, county roads, highways, infrastructure, or public utilities caused by construction, installation, maintenance, or decommissioning and restoration must be completely repaired by the owner to near original condition. Again, approved must be compliant and approved by the Public Works Director. And then finally, I stuck a provision in there that once the facility is built, that they provide the county with an as-built drawing showing the final, construction, the location of everything. And then I just posed the question, I noticed some entities actually have a fee schedule for various steps along the way, whether it's the application for the CUP. Some of them may have 2 or 3 different fee schedules involved. And I didn't know if we want to consider any of that.
Is that not in there?
I didn't see, if it is, I didn't see it, Mark. I'm not saying it's not,
Yeah, sure. No, I mean, it's a good point.
but I know these things take up a lot of staff time and
Page 25-3. Page 25-3, the number 3 at the top, right there above 25-106.
Should be
Include
reimburse the
original-
county for all unusual and extraordinary expenses. But what I'm saying is, do we want a fee, something like a flat fee in there, like $5,000 or, so much an acre up to a max, just as a flat fee, which would help compensate the county for staff time and whatnot that's gonna be involved in the application process.
Because we have the standard conditional use permit application, and obviously, this would be a lot more potential staff time.
Just like the wind thing was. Yeah.
Right. I guess we could have further conversations, see if we want to do something like that. I mean, at a certain point, that's part of the job is to process those types of cases, but,
Well, it's part of the job, yes, but, you can be, the applicant can compensate the county for some of that effort.
Yep.
Like the one fee schedule I have here, this is from DeKalb County. It's showing the request for solar energy basically is $50 per acre, $5,000 max. Development plan, when that's submitted, is $25 an acre for $5,000 max. And then they have some other fees, which I'm not sure I understand what they all pertain to, because they use different terminology than we do. But they do have a fee schedule. Generally, it's based on the number of acres up to a max.
Yeah.
We want to consider something like that.
we could look at something like that. That would actually be an amendment to our fee schedule, which is something that we've been discussing about doing anyway, with just standard conditional use permits due to the cost of publication in the newspaper and stuff anyway. And so if we would decide to do something like that, that's where that would go. So it would be listed in our fee schedule, wouldn't be in the regulations that way.
Good thought. Anyway.
Yeah.
These are some of
Good
my
thoughts.
random
Nope, good
thoughts that
thoughts,
I
yep.
came up with.
Nope, I appreciate it.
Right now, I didn't want everybody to go home with nothing to talk
Yeah,
about.
exactly. So I mean, we can sit there and look at this and discuss now, or staff can try and incorporate these maybe where you'd like them.
Or wherever you feel they would more appropriately fit.
Yes.
Like I said, I just kind of say, well, this kind of pertains to this area, so that's where I stuck it, just as kind of a point of reference. And, I wasn't going to I could have called you up and said, give me a copy of your Word document.
I could, yeah.
But I didn't want to go to that extent. I'll let you do that.
Okay.
But,
Yeah, I mean, these are good thoughts. I realize, yeah, they're thoughts. I think we need to try and get rid of some of the gray area, if you will. Looking at your sentence on the employee parking shall be as far away from a non-participating existing dwelling as possible. So,
Yeah.
I mean, what is that? Yeah, I mean, I
yeah.
don't want to leave that up to me to determine or to them to determine.
Yeah.
I need a number. I want to have a number so that I know and then they know. So there'll be things like that to kind of work through.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I compliment Steve on digging further.
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
well, I think I'm the one of the year or so ago said, hey, we need to start looking at solar rigs. And there's, you can get a lot of boilerplate stuff. But, the thing I struggle with is what should we be looking to regulate, within a commercial solar enterprise? What are the concerns that we need to be addressing on those things? That's kind of what has me stymied, that I'm trying to sort out and say, okay, we go through the normal stuff, setbacks, this, that, and the other thing that we normally cover, but are there anything unique to that industry that we should be aware of that we need to cover?
Some of these, I think, can be in the regulations we can expand on. Some of these would be in the developer's agreement that the county commissioners would review and ultimately adopt, but it doesn't hurt to, expand on items they should be looking at, I guess is
Should
the way
be
to say it.
considered to be included in the
Yeah, I mean,
development.
we're not mandating that you do, like you said, on the road repairs and traffic control and stuff like that, but
Yeah, that's
these would
stuff I
be,
wasn't sure exactly where to put it, but.
those would be items to consider when
Wanted to
developing.
put it out there so that, Don didn't get left holding the cost of repairing all the roads they tear up.
Right, exactly, so.
It's just like solar or wind, they have a lot of heavy equipment comes in and out.
Mark, as we're trying to think through all the possibilities here, is there any overarching language to help with situations with someone who says, well, you didn't say I couldn't do that? If we have a glaring hole that we think, oh, darn.
Yeah.
Is there any protection as far as regulatory language goes that says we have the, for the greater public good, or,
Right.
I don't know if you know what I'm asking or not, but.
Yeah, I kind of do, I kind of don't, I'm kind of struggling how to answer.
Well, it's like, we didn't
It's
say you
like-
could.
I mean, it's,
I mean, you have to follow the regulations, and,
I mean,
because it says what you can do.
Factors that come into play
yeah,
that we have to consider.
yeah, I mean.
And so that isn't gonna be a catch-all, but it's still gonna be a piece of that puzzle that it would tie a lot of loose ends up. I think. I don't know, maybe
That's why-
I'm thinking of what we did previously with wind, because we really didn't hang our hat on, but we really reviewed the golden factors when it came to looking at that CUP, when we got down to when the rubber hit the road and made a decision, we had to decide within ourselves whether or not it met those in our minds.
Yeah, and that's where, yeah, I was kind of headed, with the factors that you're talking about, protections or what have you. I mean, it's kind of like Don said, it'd be nice if it's in the regulations as a shall or a will. That's the ultimate, goal. However, with the way our zoning regulations are set up, with everything being a conditional use permit, we don't have future land use maps that say, yeah, this area is more appropriate for commercial. Any type of land use is possible anywhere in the zoned area with that approved conditional use permit. So I think using our regulations, if there's some item that we didn't think about, we overlooked, I think that conditional use permit could provide you some latitude to maybe help regulate whatever maybe would come out of a public hearing that we didn't think about and it didn't address in the public, hearing process.
We can always stipulate conditions as a part of the approval process.
Yeah, because that was part of the issue with wind a little bit is, we didn't have any regulations and they didn't have any regulations to go by, so we're just going through this process and it was at your discretion. And sometimes that's good, other times not so good. So I think there would be some opportunity there to do that, but it'd be nice if we had everything in the regulations that we could possibly do
I
though.
agree with that.
That's the best thing.
That's just trying to figure out
Yeah,
what
what.
needed to be in there.
Right.
That's what going back to my point is, what do we need to regulate? What are the most pressing concerns on solar?
Steve, you touched on the waterways and any damage to the waterways. I was thinking I was on kind of similar path. Where am I here? 25-107, paragraph 7, we talk about documentation on how the solar energy system project will manage stormwater runoff.
Right.
We were asking for an engineered drainage document for a building that we talked about last month. Is that something that we need to put in need to articulate in our regulations, that we need an engineered,
Drainage study.
dirt work, I mean, I don't know how else to put it. We probably need an engineer, a stamped engineer plan for runoff. I don't know, we were talking about it last
Yeah,
week,
could be.
last month, and it just
Well, it
hit
could
me.
be an issue, because, I mean, you're taking what is probably ag land, which is just dirt. It rains, dirt absorbs it, and you're converting that to maybe a semi-hard surface, gravel, who knows what they're gonna put down. If they put a weed barrier down or that type of thing, then it could affect the runoff capability or the absorption capability.
What I was reading over the last month is the proponents of solar will tell you that it doesn't have impact on wildlife. And I'll argue that just a little bit, and I think we're doing our due diligence in that 25107, paragraph 4, where we talk about a third party existing our environmental concern, and it has wildlife habitat, avian study, flora, fauna, all that sort of good stuff. I think I don't know that we need to get any tighter with it. I just think I'm glad to see it's in there. It needs to be there.
It very well may not affect wildlife, and it may not add any drainage.
Long term, you don't know. Short term during construction, if you take out, let's just say you take out 40 acres of CRP.
That could definitely.
You're gonna
Loss of
adjust it.
habitat.
Yeah. Well,
But in long term, let's just say they plant some short grass underneath that. You're gonna see that repopulate over time. We just want to make sure that they are.
It happened
and it's
even in
important
ag.
I think it's important that a professional third party
Yes.
reviews it. It's really not our place or the developer's place to make that determination.
Exactly.
But it's just, things change. I mean, when we bought a place where we live, I had 240 acres of CRP next door to me. We had wild pheasants and quail and deer, and now I've got 85 acres of wheat next to me, and the other 160 acres is cattle grazing. I've heard one pheasant this year. Or my wife heard, I didn't hear it. My wife said she heard one the other day. That's the only pheasant I've heard. Quail, they're hanging in there. They're doing pretty good.
What about storage? Harley, I think you mentioned that last month. You touched on
Battery
what
storage.
happened. What are we doing?
In the
How are we
future,
doing it?
my opinion is solar collectors will also, in many cases, be in conjunction with battery storage.
Yep. Agreed. Well, it was almost confirmed with our conversation we had with folks down at Yoder last month, because they're building a building to be a storage and distribution warehouse for batteries, the solar guys. So I think your comments were well founded. Now, do we need to think about that?
But those-
Are those? I don't know what these sites look like. Is there potential for storage facilities to be placed on the sites of the solar farm?
I don't know. I mean, because, the deal with the guy at Yoder, he sells more business residential,
Right,
where they
right.
may require some storage for
Yeah.
off hours.
Yep.
Whereas on a commercial solar farm, they're plugged into the electrical line, transmission lines, and they're just sending it out as fast as they can get it. They're not storing, have a reason to store it,
Gotcha.
that I know of.
But will that change in
That's
30 years?
see, that's where
I don't know.
Yeah.
Or there may be somebody that just builds a storage facility.
Right.
No panels, but just acres of batteries.
Well, that's a different ball of wax. I assume that would be a separate conditional use permit that we would have to consider, for that instance, and it's not related to solar.
So do we need to specify in the regulations that that battery storage would be a separate process and not covered under Article 25.
I wonder if, Steve made a very good point, that if there's a battery attached to it, it's usually, I don't want to call it just consumer, but I'm going to use consumer as an overarching definition, to where a business or a consumer can store it for those off hours. And maybe that if there isn't a battery, that determines that it's commercial. I don't know. It's going straight to the grid.
Or you could always
I don't know.
just say, commercial solar, we just put in there, prohibit, battery storage on commercial solar systems.
Yeah, I get that. But I think we're limiting ourselves.
Yeah.
I don't wanna say no to a potential project because we said no to batteries.
Well, yeah, but then you've got to get into okay, what do we need to regulate if they do have battery storage? That may be a deal like this deal in Yoder. He told us that's what he's planning to store in his building are these Tesla batteries, for solar systems. They're not hooked up or active, they're just, in transit.
Mm-hmm.
But, what type of a risk does that pose to, joining properties or whatever?
That's where I'm at.
Suddenly he has a fire in the building and, he's got 1,000 batteries stored in there, what are the environmental issues, public health issues and everything else that you've got to consider?
Might be something I'll look at a little bit deeper. I don't know, do you know of anything, Mark? Have you seen anything? And, you've kind of poured into this. Did you see anything in your path to this that said anything about batteries?
Oh, there's some discussions on batteries. I think you'd want to include it in the same application. I don't think you'd want to make it a separate application.
Right.
Process and
I think
everything.
you'd have to have bigger setback,
Yeah, I think you
way bigger.
I think you'd just be looking at setback requirements, there. And
So would we put a sub-paragraph in there somewhere that if project includes any kind of storage device that the setbacks are X, Y, and Z?
show it on the site plan, the setbacks are this, and then the environmental concerns of that would be probably in the developer's agreement,
Right.
subject to review by, emergency management and related entities to make sure that it's, to their standard.
So we just need to determine what those right setbacks are.
I think you just need to determine how comfortable is this board with where those would be sitting on a lease area.
Yeah.
Lease area and/or, a property line for that matter.
Do you have that kind of information for other hazardous storage like anhydrous ammonia, propane, gasoline, crude oil?
I don't know if there's something like that, there is probably no necessarily safe distance, something like that. So I'd have to look at other people and see what they're coming up with.
But there isn't any, I don't remember seeing any regs on, let's just say a railroad wants to put in a $300,000 gallon fuel tank. There isn't anything that we would say yes or no. There would be a process where we know that that's going up.
Right.
That's probably gross.
Yeah, it's a great, well, we did the storage facility on the other side of Airport Road several years ago with all those 24 vessels or whatever, and so I'd have to look and see if there's any comments from the fire chief during that case or what we did with that.
Maybe we could massage what was, what we used for regulations and with those.
Yeah.
Massage that. It's like apples and oranges that we're comparing.
Well, maybe that's what we could talk to the fire chief or something and say, hey, we're writing these solar regs and we're talking about battery storage. Do you have any information on, setbacks or anything on how hazardous these are?
Well,
that should we
emergency
need to
management as
consider?
well, because, like during the case last month, they were involved in reviewing that law. The questions that they had on the facility from a fire district standpoint, would also apply under the emergency management, hat. So I could have a visit with them and see what they would suggest.
They have some resources.
Yeah, you probably need to go somebody rather than the rural fire chief, though. I'm sorry.
He'll be tapping on.
It would be
Well, we have-
emergency management,
Yeah, I mean, we've got, but there's one fire chief that covers all the fire chiefs,
Yeah.
right now, something like that, I don't know. The county's got it set up.
Well, it's obvious we are a ways away from saying to the county commissioners, here it is. And that's good. They gave us essentially a whole year.
So, I'm not ready to rush it yet. I'd like to make sure we have a good product. I don't feel under the gun at this point.
Yeah, and I've been preoccupied with cases, and it's not going to get any easier. So in the next month at least here with stuff going on, but I'm going to try and look at these suggestions that you have, Steve, and incorporate them in. I will try and look at the battery storage. The only other, I think, big topic, which was the initial topic, was the difference between private business and then whatever you want to call in between, or private commercial, or so, and what you want to do with that. Is there any direction or any thoughts on that? Because I know there was concerns on the definitions. I think we tweaked that a little bit here, but there's nothing on that in between, for lack of a better term.
What I've been looking at is the utility scale is usually 20 megawatt or bigger. That's what I've seen.
Like this sample I'm looking at right now, it says, this district does not regulate small-scale private solar panels on residential or agricultural land and/or structures that is not sold commercially to a utility, but rather is used for personal energy consumption.
So what are you saying? There's two, there's residential or commercial. And the commercial goes clear down to the small size of a residential. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's kind of what we were doing, is we were grouping them together, the business versus businesses and residential. We were kind of grouping their non-commercial entities that are using any solar energy for their own consumption and not reselling it, except for, in case, unless there's some net buyback or whatever by the utility company.
But net metering is permitted.
Yes,
Right.
that's what we said.
Well, but in Kansas, net metering, like in Colorado, you buy $1 worth of kilowatts or you sell it back at the same price. In Kansas, you sell it back to the utility at the wholesale price, which is like 15% or 10% or something. So nobody's going to put up a bunch of panels thinking they're going to make money selling
That's the way it is now.
power back. That's the way it is now.
There's quite a bit of effort
Yeah.
to get that changed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, basically, this set of regs, like I said, that I was looking at, they just say, we're not regulating those.
Basically, everything that's not a utility is considered.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'd be comfortable with something like that.
Instead of getting into a lot of verbiage, you can just say, here's what we consider a non-commercial, solar enterprise, or whatever you want to call it. And they're not subject to these regulations.
So how does that compare? And
Like the case of Mr. Cross, we're concerned about building square feet, and are we saying if he wants to cover his 9 acres with solar panels, that's okay, but you can't build these big buildings?
Yeah, well, you want to drive by 3 acres of solar panels on your way home from work?
Well,
That'd be me.
Well-
It's, so you bring up a very good point.
It just seems like we're
But
Not
here
consistent.
again goes to to Jack's point, that the net meter situation now is not such to where I'm not gonna go out and build
Excess capacity.
Excess capacity. But you're looking at the future.
Humans are pretty creative.
They are, yeah. Now's the time to try to stymie that.
You wanna go in on some solar panels, we'll plow a cord to your place.
Might as well.
Two,
Thing called cost benefit too, you know.
Okay, speaking of cost benefit, I had another question. I think I know, economic impact studies are generally a part of these kinds of projects. Is that anything that we would want to require? Just thinking, if there's going to be little benefit, we might not be so motivated to try and work things out, or vice versa.
This is a land use,
Yeah.
it's a land use question.
That's it.
Right. That's what this board is.
Development agreement.
They can create whatever they want.
Yeah, they can do whatever they want. If they want to go into an economic development agreement or plan, they can do that there through the county commission.
I mean, the developer could be writing checks to school districts, township boards to.
Just like
Who
Xterra was trying to do.
Who knows what, but right now, we just need to worry about the dirt, whether it's gonna be good enough to do what they want to do.
But that it does, and it also protects the adjacent landowners.
Yep.
Economic impact statements were prepared for when, but really that had no bearing on this board's decision, because it doesn't make any difference if it generates X amount of dollars or it doesn't generate anything. We're looking at land use. I mean, you're not going to look at the impact of anybody's type of development like last month. I mean, are we gonna look at his development and say, well, yeah, okay, you're just building this big building for yourself. You're not really generating any kind of economic benefit to the county, so we don't think that this should even be permitted. You don't do that. You're looking at a land use perspective. You're not looking at it from an economic development standpoint or anything. So, yeah, so something like that would not be in the zoning regulations. Something like that could be submitted for county commissioner benefit or whatever they want. But I mean, really, even their decision needs to be based on land use, not economics.
Chamber of Commerce will get their teeth in.
Yeah.
I saw that, did you see, I saw a little blurb somewhere that some coalition, wind or solar coalition is having a meeting tonight at 6:30. And part of it sponsored by Nexter and the chamber, and, solar, whatever. I thought that was kind of a coincidence.
We got about 4 minutes to get.
We hurried, I can't remember where it was, but,
Okay, well, I can look at these changes and so did I misunderstand? So we're gonna be good on the definitions of private and commercial, and we're gonna regulate the utility, is that what I'm understanding? So I don't need to do really any more work on that? I know we had a lot of discussion on the business.
Yeah.
Okay. I will look at,
I think I'm good on the definitions of it.
I will look at the changes here and prepare another draft, probably with suggested changes highlighted in red like we did before, and we'll discuss it next month.
See if I can come up with some more suggestions.
If you have anything in between, certainly email to me. You got one BZA case, one rezone next month. So we'll have probably about the same amount of time to discuss this next month.
So I'd like to ask you a question then, on the way you're thinking right now, which is perfectly fine, but like you take the little solar ones that's been put in already in this county, so they're gonna be treated like a great big one, they're gonna have to have a decommissioning, they're gonna have to come up with the money for decommissioning and all that, clear down anything above a residential, is that what you're saying?
Anything that is basically generating electricity for transmission or resale. So, yeah, like the two little ones we have, they would fall into these rigs, yeah.
The existing ones, is that your question?
No, they would-
Anyone like that in the
Like if they, you know,
future.
so-
Anything beyond residential would have to have a decommissioning, or have to put a money for
Park Valley
that.
Electric wanted to come in and put in another
Yeah.
little solar farm after we develop these rigs, then, yeah, they'd have to. Or they can't now, they can't do anything until next year because.
Why do you ask that question?
Well, because when we first started, it was like, okay, are we gonna treat them like the big ones? Is there gonna be three? Is there gonna be residential, which we're not gonna regulate? And then is there gonna be two sizes? And the regulations may be different on a certain wattage or whatever. I don't know, but now it's back to there's one size other than residential. And I just wanna make sure.
Yeah, I think, to me, that's appropriate. I mean, you know, I mean, it's the same issues on a smaller or bigger scale is the only variance, I think.
I don't disagree, I just wanna make it clear because we've
Yeah,
changed.
I want to make sure we're right in your guys' request.
Yeah, because even if it's only a 10 or 20 acre parcel, you still don't want that abandoned if they go belly up and walk away. So
Right, it doesn't matter what we.
It's still an eyesore.
It still is an eyesore.
I'll try and make these changes or some variation of what Steve, I have an understanding of what
If
he's
you have any
looking
questions, you
at.
know, feel free to get a hold of me.
Will do.
See if I can clarify it more than I did.
Hopefully I don't butcher it too much, and we'll do that, and then we'll make those changes, and then eventually we'll get back and we'll have a clean copy, and then we'll have like a final reading, if you will, and then this board will be expected to set a public hearing date once you're comfortable with it.
Mark, do you get any planning magazines or look at the
Yes.
Planners of America website or whatever that have interesting articles in them that?
Yeah, I've had some.
Okay.
I've been reading some of them,
Okay.
yeah.
I mean, if you could, some of those, if you think they're appropriate, to print them off and send them to us, or give us the link so we can read them, or something like that. I mean, I've read some newspaper articles and stuff, you know, where
Yeah.
large scale, you know, 10,000 acre solar farms and the environmentalists just attack them like crazy, you know, that, you know, bird flies over, it's gonna get fried. That, you know, they come up with all sorts of reasons not to have them.
Right.
And I'd just be interested in
Sure, yeah, we can do that.
something like that.
What else?
Anything else? You have anything new for us, Mark?
Nope.
Dawn?
Nope.
Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Moving second. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.